The sound of tearing fabric echoed through Lincoln High's main corridor like thunder on a clear day. Sophia Chun stood motionless as her navy blazer split down the back seam, the white button-up shirt beneath it shredding like tissue paper. Her pleated skirt hung in tatters around her waist. 200 students formed a circle, their phones capturing every second of her humiliation. But underneath the destroyed school uniform, something unexpected gleamed in the fluorescent hallway. Lights. White fabric, clean lines. A belt tied with precision around her waist. The distinctive V-neck of a Taekwondo dobok. Sophia's breathing shifted. Her posture changed. Her hands, which had been trembling moments before, now moved with deliberate precision into a fighting stance that made several students step backward instinctively. Before we jump back in, tell us where you're tuning in from, and if this story touches you, make sure you're subscribed because tomorrow I've saved something extra special for you. Marcus Rodriguez, captain of the wrestling team, and Lincoln High's self-appointed king, held pieces of her uniform like battle trophies. His smirk faltered when he saw what she was wearing underneath. The crowd's jeering died to whispers, then silence. "What the hell is that?" Marcus muttered, his voice carrying less confidence than usual. Sophia's dark eyes met his, and for the first time in 3 months of torment, she spoke with absolute clarity. "My real uniform." The transformation was instant and terrifying. The shy transfer student who had endured weeks of harassment was gone, replaced by someone who moved like a coiled spring. Someone dangerous, but this moment didn't happen overnight. It was the culmination of a journey that began in San Francisco, in a small apartment where cardboard boxes still lined the walls and a teenage girl practiced kicks in silence, trying to rebuild a life that had been shattered by circumstances beyond her control. Sophia Chun had never wanted to be invisible, but invisibility had become her survival strategy. At her previous school in San Francisco, she'd been confident, popular even. She was the star of the Taekwondo team, a black belt who competed in state championships and taught younger students on weekends. Her father, Dr. James Chun, was a respected cardiologist. Her mother, Linda, ran a successful interior design business. They lived in a beautiful house in Pacific Heights with a view of the bay. Everything changed on a Tuesday in March. The FBI raid happened at dawn. Sophia woke to the sound of her bedroom door splintering. Federal agents in tactical gear flooded their home, shouting commands, seizing computers, files, bank records. Her father was led away in handcuffs, accused of healthcare fraud, money laundering, and tax evasion. The local news trucks arrived within hours. "Prominent San Francisco doctor arrested in multi-million-dollar fraud scheme," read the headlines. Her father's mugshot was plastered across every local channel. Their assets were frozen. Their house was seized. Her mother's business collapsed overnight when clients fled. Terrified of association with scandal, Sophia watched her entire world crumble in a matter of days. Classmates who had been friends for years suddenly avoided her. Teachers looked at her with suspicion and pity. The Taekwondo Academy asked her to take a temporary leave to avoid negative publicity. Even her closest friends stopped returning. Her calls, the legal bills consumed what little money they had left. Her mother sold jewelry, furniture, anything of value to pay for attorneys. They moved into a cramped one-bedroom apartment in Oakland, sharing a mattress on the floor while lawyers fought a losing battle against federal prosecutors. 6 months later, her father was sentenced to 8 years in federal prison. The judge ordered full restitution of the stolen funds, money they no longer had. Her mother suffered a nervous breakdown and was hospitalized for 2 weeks. When she was released, she was a shadow of her former self, quiet and withdrawn, jumping at sudden noises. That's when Sophia's Aunt Rebecca in Chicago offered them a place to stay. Rebecca was Linda's younger sister, a high school guidance counselor who lived alone in a modest house in Rogers Park. She'd never had children of her own, but welcomed them with open arms, clearing out her spare room and enrolling Sophia at Lincoln High for her senior year. Fresh start, Rebecca had said, helping them unpack their few remaining possessions. Nobody here knows your story. You can be whoever you want to be. But Sophia didn't know who she wanted to be anymore. The confident girl who had won trophies and led her team was gone, buried under shame and trauma. She packed away her Taekwondo uniforms and medals, deciding it was better to disappear than risk drawing attention that might lead to discovery of her past. Lincoln High was a sprawling brick building on Chicago's North Side, serving a diverse mix of students from working-class families. It wasn't the prestigious private academy she'd attended in San Francisco, but it wasn't rough either. Just average, normal, the kind of place where a quiet transfer student could blend into the background. Sophia chose her wardrobe carefully. For the first day, plain jeans, a simple sweater, minimal makeup. She tied her long black hair in a low ponytail and kept her eyes down as she navigated the crowded hallways. Her class schedule was deliberately unremarkable: regular English, standard math, basic science. No advanced placement courses that might showcase her intelligence. No extracurriculars that might reveal her athletic background. For the first 2 weeks, the strategy worked perfectly. She sat in the middle rows of every classroom, took notes quietly, and ate lunch alone in the library. Teachers barely noticed her. Students walked past her like she was furniture. She was achieving her goal of complete invisibility. Marcus Rodriguez noticed her on a Wednesday in October. Marcus was everything Lincoln High valued in a student. 6 feet tall, with the build of someone who'd been lifting weights since middle school. He carried himself with the easy confidence of someone who'd never been told no. His father owned 3 auto repair shops on the North Side. His older brother had gotten a wrestling scholarship to Northwestern. Marcus was expected to follow the same path, and he wore that expectation like armor. He ruled Lincoln High through a combination of athletic achievement, family money, and carefully cultivated fear. Teachers loved him because he was respectful and got decent grades. Parents loved him because he was polite and came from a good family. Students either worshipped him or avoided him, understanding instinctively that crossing Marcus Rodriguez was social suicide. His inner circle consisted of Tommy Patterson, whose father was a Chicago police officer, and Diego Morales, whose uncle ran numbers for one of the local crews. Together, they formed an unofficial enforcement team that kept order in the school's social hierarchy. Through intimidation and strategic humiliation, Marcus spotted Sophia sitting alone in the cafeteria, methodically eating a peanut butter sandwich while reading a paperback novel. Something about her stillness irritated him. Everyone at Lincoln High moved with purpose or anxiety. They hurried to class, gossiped in groups, sought attention or approval. This girl just existed, calm and separate, as if the social dynamics that governed everyone else didn't apply to her. "Who's the ice queen?" he asked Tommy and Diego as they settled at their usual table across the cafeteria. Tommy followed his gaze. "Transfer student. Chun, I think. Started a couple weeks ago. Keeps to herself. Where'd she come from? California, maybe? She's in my calc class. Smart, but doesn't talk unless the teacher calls on her directly." Diego laughed. "Probably thinks she's too good for us Chicago kids, rich girls slumming it." Marcus studied Sophia more carefully. Her clothes were nice but not expensive. Her backpack was worn at the edges. She didn't have the latest phone or designer accessories that usually marked the wealthy students. But there was something in her posture, the way she held herself, that suggested she'd come from money. "Let's go introduce ourselves," Marcus said, standing up. "Leave her alone, man," Tommy said, recognizing the look in his friend's eyes. "She's not bothering anyone." "Exactly. That's not how things work here. Everyone participates in the Lincoln High experience." They approached her table slowly, Marcus leading with his most charming smile. Sophia didn't look up from her book until his shadow fell across the page. "Hey there," Marcus said, sliding into the seat across from her without invitation. "I'm Marcus Rodriguez. I don't think we've been properly introduced." Sophia glanced up briefly, took in the three boys surrounding her table, and returned to her book. "Nice to meet you," she said quietly. "What's your name?" "Sophia." "Sophia what?" "Sophia Chun." Marcus waited for her to elaborate, ask about him, show some interest in the conversation. When she didn't, his smile tightened. "So Sophia Chun, where are you from?" "California." "Whereabouts in California?" "The Bay Area." Each answer was delivered without eye contact, without enthusiasm, without the deference Marcus was accustomed to receiving from other students. He could feel Tommy and Diego exchanging glances behind him, sensing his growing irritation. "Well, Sophia Chun from the Bay Area. Let me give you some advice about Lincoln High. We're a friendly school. People here like to get to know each other. It's considered rude to ignore your classmates when they're trying to be nice." Preparing and narrating this story took us a lot of time, so if you are enjoying it, subscribe to our channel. It means a lot to us. Now back to the story. For the first time, Sophia looked directly at him. Her dark eyes were calm and assessing, showing no fear or intimidation. "I'm not ignoring you. I'm answering your questions. But I'm also trying to read, and I don't have much time before my next class." The dismissal was polite but unmistakable. Marcus felt heat rising in his cheeks as he realized other students were watching the interaction. Nobody dismissed Marcus Rodriguez, not at his school. "Maybe you didn't understand me," he said, leaning forward. "I'm trying to welcome you to our community. The least you could do is put down the book and have a real conversation." Sophia closed the book, but instead of engaging, she stood up and began packing her lunch. "Thank you for the welcome. I appreciate the gesture. But I really do need to get to class." She walked away before Marcus could respond, leaving him sitting at her empty table with his friends and a cafeteria full of witnesses to his rejection. The humiliation burned in his chest like acid. "Dude, let it go," Tommy said quietly. "She's just shy." But Marcus wasn't listening. He was watching Sophia disappear into the crowd, planning his next move. Because if there was one thing Marcus Rodriguez understood, it was that challenges had to be met. And Sophia Chun had just issued him a challenge. That afternoon, Marcus began what he thought of as his integration campaign. He started small, testing boundaries. He'd appear beside Sophia's locker between classes, standing just close enough to invade her personal space while maintaining plausible deniability. "Hey, Sophia," he'd say with false friendliness. "How are your classes going? Making any friends?" Yet, she'd respond with minimal politeness and try to leave, but he'd follow her down the hallway, continuing the conversation she clearly didn't want to have. Other students began to notice the pattern, whispering about the weird dynamic between Marcus Rodriguez and the quiet transfer student. Marcus escalated gradually. He'd save seats near her in the classes they shared, forcing her to either sit beside him or look rude by choosing a different spot. He'd volunteer to be her partner in group projects, knowing she was too polite to refuse publicly. He'd accidentally bump into her in crowded hallways, always apologizing profusely while his friends snickered behind him. Sophia endured it all with the same calm demeanor that had first irritated him. She never complained to teachers, never lost her temper, never gave him the reaction he was seeking. Her composure only made him more determined to crack it. The real harassment began after the Halloween dance. Sophia hadn't planned to attend, but her Aunt Rebecca had encouraged her to go. "You need to make friends, sweetheart," Rebecca had said. "High school isn't just about grades. It's about building relationships that will last a lifetime." So Sophia had borrowed a simple black dress from her cousin's closet and showed up to the gymnasium, which had been transformed with orange and black streamers and fake spider webs. She intended to make a brief appearance, maybe dance to a few songs, then leave early. Marcus spotted her within minutes. He'd come to the dance with Jessica Walsh, a cheerleader he'd been casually dating, but seeing Sophia alone in the corner changed his plans. He approached her with his usual confidence, leaving Jessica stranded by the punch bowl. "Sophia, I'm so glad you decided to come. You look beautiful." "Thank you," she replied, scanning the room for escape routes. "Would you like to dance?" "That's very kind, but I'm actually about to leave." "Come on, one dance. I promise I won't bite." Before she could refuse again, Marcus had taken her hand and led her onto the dance floor. The song was a slow ballad, and he pulled her closer than she was comfortable with, his hands wandering lower on her back than appropriate. "You know," he said, his mouth close to her ear, "you don't have to be so standoffish all the time. I could make your time at Lincoln High a lot more enjoyable." Sophia tried to step back, but his grip tightened. "I'm fine, thank you. I think I'll sit this one out." "I don't think so," Marcus said, his voice losing its friendly tone. "We're going to finish this dance, and then we're going to have a real conversation about your attitude." That's when Sophia felt something shift inside her chest. A familiar heat, a coiling tension in her muscles that she'd been suppressing for months. Her Taekwondo training had taught her to recognize the signs of an impending conflict, to assess threats and respond appropriately. Marcus Rodriguez was a threat. Instead of struggling or making a scene, Sophia went completely still. Her breathing deepened. Her center of gravity lowered almost imperceptibly. When she looked up at Marcus, her expression had changed from polite discomfort to something much more dangerous. "Let go of me," she said quietly. Something in her voice made Marcus release her immediately. For just a moment, he saw something in her eyes that reminded him of his wrestling coach, right? Particularly brutal training session. Something predatory and controlled. But the moment passed, and Sophia simply walked away, leaving the dance without another word. Marcus spent the rest of the evening telling anyone who would listen that Sophia Chun was a stuck-up ice queen who thought she was too good for Lincoln High. By Monday morning, the story had evolved into a narrative about a rich California girl who'd insulted Marcus in front of the entire school. The real campaign of harassment began that week. It started with social media. Fake accounts began following Sophia's minimal online presence, posting comments about her being antisocial and weird. Photos of her eating alone or walking by herself were shared with captions like, "Guess nobody wants to be friends with the Ice Queen." And when you're so stuck up, even your own reflection avoids you. Then came the physical escalation. Her locker was vandalized with words like SNOB and "Go home" written in permanent marker. Her textbooks disappeared from her bag during PE class. Someone put gum in her hair during the chemistry lab, forcing her to cut out a chunk of her long black ponytail. Through it all, Sophia maintained her composure. She cleaned her locker without complaint. She bought new textbooks with money she couldn't afford to spend. She wore her hair in a shorter style and pretended she'd chosen the change. But late at night, alone in her aunt's spare room, she'd take out her Taekwondo uniform and hold it against her chest, remembering who she used to be, remembering the girl who'd never let anyone push her around, who'd stood up for weaker students, who'd been proud of her strength. That girl felt like a stranger now, buried under months of trauma and the desperate need to stay hidden. But sometimes when Marcus got too close or his comments got too personal, Sophia could feel her stirring underneath all the fear and shame. She was still there, waiting. November brought Chicago's first real cold snap, and with it, Marcus Rodriguez's patience finally ran out. 3 weeks had passed since the Halloween dance incident, and Sophia Chun remained as untouchable as ever. Worse, other students were beginning to notice his failed attempts to break her composure. Whispers followed him through the hallways about the girl who wouldn't give Marcus the time of day. The breaking point came during lunch on a gray Tuesday. Marcus sat with his usual crew, picking at a sandwich while watching Sophia read alone at her corner table. She was completely absorbed in her book, occasionally taking small bites of an apple, oblivious to the storm brewing 30 feet away. "She's making you look weak," Diego said bluntly, following Marcus's gaze. "People are starting to talk." Tommy nodded reluctantly. "My girlfriend asked me yesterday if you were losing your touch. Said her friends think it's weird that you can't even get the new girl to acknowledge you exist." Marcus's jaw tightened. His reputation at Lincoln High was built on a carefully maintained image of effortless dominance. Teachers respected him, parents approved of him, and students either wanted to be him or be with him. But none of that mattered if he couldn't handle one antisocial transfer student. "Watch and learn," Marcus said, standing abruptly. He approached Sophia's table with purpose this time, no pretense of casual friendliness. Tommy and Diego flanked him, creating an intimidating triangle around her isolated spot. The cafeteria's noise level dropped as nearby students sensed something significant was about to happen. "Sophia," Marcus said, his voice carrying just enough volume to ensure an audience, "we need to have a conversation." She looked up from her book, took in the 3 boys surrounding her, and calmly marked her page before closing it. "About what?" "About your problem with this school. About your attitude. About the way you've been disrespecting me and my friends." "I don't have a problem with this school," Sophia replied evenly. "And I haven't disrespected anyone. I've been polite to everyone who's approached me." "Polite?" Marcus laughed, but there was no humor in it. "You call ignoring people polite? You call acting like you're too good for everyone here polite?" Sophia stood up, gathering her things. "I think there's been a misunderstanding. I'm not trying to ignore anyone or act superior. I just prefer to keep to myself." "Well, that's not how things work here," Diego interjected. "This is a community. You don't get to just opt out." "I'm not opting out of anything. I go to class, I do my work. I don't cause problems for anyone." "You're causing problems for me," Marcus said, stepping closer. "You're making me look bad in front of my school." For the first time, Sophia's composure cracked slightly. A flash of something dangerous flickered across her features before she controlled it. "That's not my intention. And it's not my responsibility." The words hit Marcus like a physical slap. Around them, the cafeteria had gone nearly silent. Students were openly staring now, phones discreetly recording. Marcus could feel his carefully constructed image crumbling with every second he failed to establish dominance over this quiet girl. "Maybe we need to help you understand how things work around here," Tommy said, moving to block Sophia's exit route. But Sophia had already calculated the situation. 3 boys, multiple escape routes, too many witnesses for anything truly dangerous. She stepped around Tommy with fluid grace, her movement so confident and controlled that he instinctively moved aside. "Excuse me," she said simply, and walked away. The cafeteria erupted in whispers as soon as she was gone. Marcus stood frozen for a moment, processing what had just happened. Then he turned and stalked out of the room, his friends trailing behind him. That afternoon, Principal Margaret Foster received an unexpected visitor. Sophia Chun knocked on her office door during 6th period, having requested a hall pass from her study hall supervisor. "Miss Chun," Principal Foster said, looking up from a stack of disciplinary reports, "this is a surprise. Please sit down." "What can I do for you?" Sophia had chosen her approach carefully. Principal Foster was a no-nonsense woman in her 50s, who'd been running Lincoln High for 8 years. She had a reputation for fairness, but also for protecting the school's interests above individual complaints. "I wanted to discuss a situation that's been developing over the past few weeks," Sophia began. "I'm hoping to resolve it before it becomes a bigger problem." Principal Foster leaned back in her chair. "I'm listening." "Marcus Rodriguez has been making me uncomfortable. Not in any way that violates school policy," Sophia added quickly, but consistently enough that I felt I should document it. She pulled out a small notebook and placed it on the principal's desk. I've been keeping track of incidents, unwanted attention, following me between classes, standing too close at my locker, forcing conversations when I've politely tried to disengage. Principal Foster opened the notebook and scanned the neat, detailed entries. Dates, times, locations, witnesses when available. It was thorough and damning. These are serious allegations, Miss Chun, but I notice you haven't written up any formal complaints. Why come to me now? Because I think the situation is escalating. Today in the cafeteria, he confronted me publicly with two friends. He accused me of disrespecting him and making him look bad. I'm concerned about what might happen next. Principal Foster studied the girl sitting across from her desk. Sophia Chun had been at Lincoln High for 6 weeks and had caused 0 problems. Her grades were excellent, her teachers spoke well of her, and she'd never been sent to the office for any reason. Marcus Rodriguez, on the other hand, was the star wrestler whose family donated generously to the athletics program. His father, Roberto Rodriguez, sat on the school board. Marcus himself was being recruited by several Division I colleges. Miss Chun, I appreciate you bringing this to my attention. I'll speak with Marcus about maintaining appropriate boundaries. However, I should mention that sometimes when students are new to a school, they can misinterpret friendly overtures as harassment. Sophia's expression didn't change, but something shifted in her posture. With respect, Principal Foster, I've attended 5 different schools due to my father's work. I know the difference between friendly overtures and harassment. Of course, I didn't mean to imply otherwise. I'll handle this discreetly. But Sophia could see in the principal's eyes that nothing meaningful would be done. The notebook would be filed away. Maybe Marcus would get a gentle talking to about giving the new student some space, and the problem would continue. Thank you for your time, Sophia said, standing to leave. Miss Chun, if there are any further incidents, please don't hesitate to come see me immediately. Sophia nodded and left the office, knowing she wouldn't be back. She'd tried the official route and found it wanting. From now on, she'd handle things her own way. The conversation Principal Foster had with Marcus the next morning was exactly as ineffective as Sophia had predicted. Marcus sat in the principal's office, projecting respectful concern while inwardly seething. I'm not sure what Miss Chun thinks I've done wrong, Marcus said, his voice carefully modulated. I've tried to be welcoming to her. Maybe I came on too strong, but I was just trying to help her feel included. I understand your intentions. We're good, Marcus. But Miss Chun feels uncomfortable with the level of attention you've been giving her. I need you to respect her boundaries and give her some space. Of course, Principal Foster. I had no idea I was making her uncomfortable. I'll definitely back off. Good. I knew you'd understand. You're one of our finest students, Marcus. I don't want any misunderstandings to affect your college prospects. Marcus left the meeting with a newfound sense of grievance. Not only had Sophia Chun publicly humiliated him, but now she was trying to get him in trouble with the administration. The gloves were officially off. The real campaign began that weekend. Marcus spent Saturday night at Diego's house, planning what he called Operation Ice Queen. It would make Sophia Chun's life so miserable that she'd either submit to Marcus's authority or transfer schools entirely. We can't do anything that'll get us suspended, Tommy warned. Wrestling season starts next month. Don't worry, Marcus replied. We're going to be smart about this. Death by 1,000 cuts. Monday morning brought the first volley. Sophia arrived at school to find her locker had been superglued shut. Maintenance had to drill out the lock, and she missed her first period waiting for a replacement. When she finally got her books, she discovered someone had poured soda through the ventilation slats, soaking her notebooks and spare clothes. Tuesday. Her car tires were deflated in the parking lot. Not slashed, which would have been vandalism, just deflated. The security cameras mysteriously malfunctioned during the exact window when it happened. Wednesday brought the fake social media accounts, professional-looking profiles with her name, and photo began posting controversial opinions about school policies, insulting teachers, and starting arguments with other students. By lunch, Sophia was getting dirty looks from classmates who thought she'd called them idiots online. Thursday was the worst yet. Someone had created a fake dating profile using her photos, advertising her availability for various degrading activities. The profile included her phone number, and she spent the evening blocking dozens of calls from strange men. Through it all, Sophia maintained her composure at school. She cleaned her locker without complaint, got her tires refilled at a gas station, and calmly explained to anyone who asked that the social media accounts weren't hers. But the strain was showing. Her Aunt Rebecca noticed the change immediately. Sophia was sleeping poorly, eating less, and spending hours on her phone dealing with the fallout from the fake profiles. "Honey, what's going on at school?" Rebecca asked. Friday night as they sat in the kitchen sharing takeout Chinese food. "Nothing unusual," Sophia replied, but her voice lacked conviction. "Sophia, I'm a guidance counselor. I know when a student is being bullied. Talk to me." For a moment, Sophia considered telling her aunt everything. But Rebecca worked in the school system. She'd feel obligated to report it, which would only make things worse. "Just some social media drama," Sophia said finally. "It'll blow over." But Rebecca wasn't fooled. That night, she called her sister Linda in California. "I think Sophia's having trouble at school," Rebecca said. "She won't talk about it, but something's wrong." Linda's voice was thick with exhaustion. "She's been through so much already. Maybe we should consider homeschooling for the rest of the year. Running away won't solve anything. And Sophia's stronger than you think. Remember how she used to handle bullies when she was younger?" Linda was quiet for a long moment. "That was before everything happened. Before she learned that being strong just makes you a target." But Rebecca had seen flashes of the old Sophia in recent weeks. The way she carried herself, the controlled way she moved, the careful assessment in her eyes when she thought no one was looking. That girl was still in there, waiting. Meanwhile, Marcus was growing frustrated with the slow pace of Sophia's breakdown. She was clearly affected by the harassment campaign, but she wasn't breaking the way his previous targets had. Most students would have been crying in the bathroom or begging for mercy by now. "Maybe we need to try a more direct approach," Diego suggested during their Monday planning session. "Like what?" "Corner her somewhere private. Make it clear what happens to people who don't know their place." Tommy looked uncomfortable. "That sounds like it could get us in real trouble." "Only if someone talks," Marcus said. "And who's she going to tell?" She already tried going to Foster and got nowhere. The opportunity came the following Wednesday. Sophia stayed after school to use the library computers, since her laptop had been damaged in the locker incident. The library closed at 4 p.m., and she was often the last student to leave. Marcus, Tommy, and Diego positioned themselves in the hallway outside the library, waiting. When Sophia emerged at 4:15, backpack slung over her shoulder, she found her path blocked. "Sophia," Marcus said, his voice echoing in the empty corridor. "Perfect timing. We need to have that conversation we've been putting off." Sophia assessed the situation quickly. 3 boys, empty hallway, no witnesses, all exit routes potentially blocked. Her heart rate increased, but her breathing remained controlled. "I don't have anything to say to you," she replied, trying to walk around them. Diego stepped into her path. "Yeah, you do. You've been causing problems for Marcus, and that means you've been causing problems for all of us. The only problem I see is 3 boys trying to intimidate 1 girl in an empty hallway." "Intimidate?" Marcus laughed. "We're just trying to help you understand the social order here. You're new, so maybe you don't get how things work. I understand perfectly. You're upset because I won't submit to your authority, so you've been harassing me for weeks trying to force compliance. The clinical way she described the situation made Marcus even angrier. You think you're so smart, don't you? Think your big words and stuck-up attitude make you better than us? I think this conversation is over. Sophia tried to push past them. But Tommy grabbed her arm. Marcus is talking to you. That's when something fundamental shifted in Sophia's demeanor. Her entire body went still, her breathing deepened, and when she looked at Tommy's hand on her arm, her expression was absolutely deadly. Let go of me, she said quietly. Tommy hesitated, suddenly aware that he'd crossed a line. But Marcus was watching, and backing down would mean losing face. Make me, Tommy said, trying to sound tough. What happened next lasted maybe 3 seconds. But to the boys involved, it felt like an eternity. Sophia's free hand moved in a precise arc, striking Tommy's wrist at exactly the right angle to break his grip. As he reflexively pulled back, she stepped into his space and drove her knee upward, stopping just short of contact with his solar plexus. Next time I won't stop, she said. Her voice calm despite the violence implied in her position. Tommy stumbled backward, clutching his wrist. Diego and Marcus stood frozen, suddenly aware that the quiet girl they'd been tormenting was far more dangerous than they'd realized. Sophia straightened her backpack and walked away, leaving the 3 boys standing in the empty hallway, processing what had just happened. Did you see how fast she moved? Diego whispered. Marcus didn't respond. He was too busy recalculating everything he thought he knew about Sophia Chun. But instead of backing down, the revelation only made him more determined to break her. If she wanted to escalate things, he'd show her what real escalation looked like. The hallway incident changed everything, though not in the way anyone expected. Word of Sophia's lightning-fast takedown of Tommy spread through Lincoln High like wildfire, but the story grew and twisted with each telling. By Friday, rumors ranged from her being a secret ninja to having gang connections in California. Marcus found himself in an impossible position. He couldn't admit that a girl had made him and his friends back down without looking weak, but he also couldn't ignore what he'd witnessed. Sophia Chun wasn't just antisocial, she was trained, dangerous, and that made her an even bigger threat to his carefully maintained dominance. The weekend gave Marcus time to plan, and Monday morning brought a new strategy. If direct confrontation was off the table, he'd destroy her through systematic social warfare, but this time he wouldn't do it alone. We need allies, Marcus told his inner circle as they met in the wrestling room before the first period. This isn't just about putting her in her place anymore. It's about survival. Tommy was still nursing his bruised wrist, though he'd told everyone he'd injured it during wrestling practice. She's dangerous, man. I'm telling you, that wasn't luck. She knew exactly what she was doing, which is why we can't underestimate her again, Marcus replied. But we've got something she doesn't have: numbers. Diego nodded slowly. You want to turn the whole school against her. I want to make her radioactive, isolated, alone, no friends, no allies, no one willing to help her when things get really bad. The campaign began subtly. Marcus had spent 4 years building relationships across every social group at Lincoln High. He was friends with theater kids, honor students, athletes, and burnouts alike. His easygoing charm and family connections had made him genuinely popular, not just feared. Now he activated that network. Did you hear about the new girl, Sophia? He'd say casually to Sarah Martinez, president of the drama club. I tried to be nice to her, but she's super aggressive. Apparently she attacked Tommy in the hallway last week. Really? She seems so quiet, Sarah would respond. That's what makes it scary. You never know what quiet people are capable of. The message was always the same, delivered with Marcus's trademark sincerity. Sophia Chun was unstable, violent, dangerous. She'd hurt Tommy without provocation, she'd threatened other students. She came from California with a mysterious past that she refused to discuss. By Wednesday, Sophia could feel the shift. Conversations stopped when she approached. Students moved aside in the hallways, not out of respect but out of fear. Her carefully maintained invisibility had been replaced by a different kind of isolation, the kind reserved for pariahs. Jessica Walsh, Marcus's on and off girlfriend, was particularly effective at spreading the word among the popular girls. "I heard she's been in trouble at other schools," Jessica whispered to her friends during lunch. "That's why she transferred here. Her parents are probably criminals or something." The rumors grew more elaborate with each retelling. Sophia had been expelled from her previous school for fighting. Her family was in witness protection. She'd spent time in juvenile detention. Her quiet demeanor wasn't shyness, it was the calculated stillness of a predator. Meanwhile, Sophia tried to maintain her routine, but the pressure was mounting. Teachers who had once smiled at her now watched her warily. Students who had never paid attention to her before now actively avoided her. The few tentative friendships she'd begun to form withered as classmates. Decided association with her was too risky. The breaking point came during chemistry class on Thursday afternoon. Mrs. Henderson was demonstrating a reaction involving sodium and water when she asked for a volunteer to help with the next experiment. Sophia raised her hand. As she had many times before, Mrs. Henderson looked directly at her, hesitated for a long moment, then chose another student instead. "Thank you, Michael," Mrs. Henderson said to the boy sitting 2 rows behind Sophia. "Please come up and assist me." The snub was obvious and deliberate. Sophia felt her cheeks burn with humiliation as other students exchanged meaningful glances. Even the teachers were turning against her now. After class, she approached Mrs. Henderson's desk. "Excuse me, I wanted to ask about the homework assignment." Mrs. Henderson looked up nervously. "Yes, Miss Chun? I noticed you assigned problems 1 to 15. But my textbook only goes up to problem 12. Is there a supplementary worksheet?" It was a reasonable question about a legitimate concern, but Mrs. Henderson's response revealed how completely Marcus's campaign had succeeded. "I'm sure you can figure it out," the teacher said curtly. "Perhaps you could ask one of your classmates for help." Both of them knew Sophia had no classmates willing to help her. That evening, Sophia sat in her aunt's kitchen, staring at her untouched dinner. Rebecca had noticed the change in her niece's demeanor over the past week, the way she checked her phone less frequently, the lack of homework group calls, the heavy silence that surrounded her like fog. "Bad day at school?" Rebecca asked, settling into the chair across from her. "They're all bad days now," Sophia replied quietly. "Want to talk about it?" Sophia considered telling her aunt everything. About Marcus and his campaign, about the isolation, about the way even teachers were treating her like a threat. But what would be the point? Rebecca would want to intervene, which would only make things worse. "Just typical high school drama," Sophia said instead. But Rebecca wasn't fooled. That night, she made a decision that would change everything. She called her sister Linda in California. "I think we need to talk about Sophia's situation here," Rebecca said once they'd exchanged pleasantries. "I'm worried about her." "What kind of worries?" "She's isolated at school. Won't talk about what's happening, but I can see the signs. She's being bullied, and it's getting worse." Linda was quiet for a long moment. "Maybe it's time for her to come home." "To what?" "You're still living in that tiny apartment, working 2 jobs just to pay the legal bills. And Sophia would have to face all the publicity from James's case again. At least here she'd have me. She has me here." "But Linda, I think there's something else we need to consider." "What?" "Her Taekwondo training. Before everything happened with James, she was incredible. State champion, teaching younger kids, completely confident. Maybe it's time she remembered who she used to be." Linda's voice tightened. "No, absolutely not. That's what got her into trouble in the first place, thinking she could fight her way through everything. She needs to learn to blend in, to avoid confrontation. Avoiding confrontation isn't working. She's miserable, and these kids are only getting worse. Rebecca, you don't understand. After James was arrested, Sophia changed. She blamed herself for not being able to protect our family. She started training obsessively, like she thought she could fight off federal agents and journalists in bankruptcy. It was unhealthy. Or maybe she was trying to find some control in a situation where she had none. Either way, encouraging her to fight is not the answer. But Rebecca had already made up her mind. Friday afternoon, she drove to the Chicago Institute of Martial Arts, a small dojang in Rogers Park that specialized in traditional Taekwondo. The head instructor was Master Kim, a Korean immigrant in his 60s who'd been teaching for over 30 years. "I'd like to inquire about classes for my niece," Rebecca told him. "She's 17, has previous experience, but hasn't trained in almost a year." Master Kim was a small man with calloused hands and eyes that seemed to see everything. "What kind of previous experience?" "Black belt in California. State champion. But she's been through some trauma, and I think she's lost confidence in herself." "Trauma can make us forget who we are," Master Kim said thoughtfully. "But the body remembers what the mind tries to forget. Bring her in tomorrow. I'll assess her skills." She hasn't expressed interest in resuming training. The ones who need it most rarely ask for it directly. Saturday morning, Rebecca announced they were going for a drive. Sophia, grateful for any excuse to leave the house, didn't ask questions until they pulled into the parking lot of the martial arts school. "Aunt Rebecca, what are we doing here?" "I thought you might want to see what classes are available, just to look around." Sophia's expression hardened. "I'm not interested in starting Taekwondo again." "Why not?" "Because it doesn't matter how good you are at fighting when the real battles are fought in courtrooms and boardrooms. Because being strong just makes you a target. Because I tried being the girl who stands up for herself, and it destroyed my family." Rebecca turned in her seat to face her niece directly. "Your father's choices destroyed your family, not your strength. And the girl I remember from San Francisco, the one who won championships and protected other kids from bullies, she wasn't destroyed. She's just hiding. Maybe she should stay hidden. Maybe, or maybe she's exactly who need to be right now." They sat in silence for several minutes, watching through the window as students practiced forms on the mats inside. Finally, Sophia spoke. "I don't know if I remember how. There's only one way to find out." Master Kim greeted them at the door with a slight bow. "You must be Sophia. Your aunt tells me you have some experience with Taekwondo." "Some," Sophia replied cautiously. "Would you be willing to show me? Just basic forms, nothing strenuous." Sophia looked around the familiar environment, the smell of the mats, the sound of bare feet on wood, the precise movements of students practicing kicks and punches. For the first time in months, she felt something stirring in her chest that wasn't anxiety or fear. "I don't have a dobuk," she said. "We can work around that." Sophia borrowed a uniform from the school supply and changed in the small dressing room. When she emerged, she looked different. The careful slouch was gone, replaced by the erect posture of a martial artist. Her movements were fluid and controlled as she stepped onto the mat. "Show me Taeduk Il Jang," Master Kim instructed. Naming the first basic form, Sophia's body remembered before her mind caught up. She moved through the pattern with mechanical precision: block, punch, turn, kick. But there was no power behind the movements, no spirit. She was going through the motions like a robot. "Again," Master Kim said. "This time don't think about the moves. Think about why you're doing them." "I don't know why I'm doing them." "Then think about why you started. What made you begin training in the first place?" Sophia closed her eyes, remembering. She'd been 8 years old, small for her age, when a group of older boys had cornered her after school. They'd taken her backpack, scattered her homework in the mud, called her names she didn't understand but knew were meant to hurt. She'd gone home crying, and her father had sat her down for a serious conversation. "Sophia," he'd said, "there will always be people who try to hurt others because they can. The question is whether you're going to let them, or whether you're going to be strong enough to protect yourself and the people who can't protect themselves." 2 weeks later, she walked into her first Taekwondo class. Now, standing in Master Kim's dojang 15 years later, Sophia began the form again. This time, power flowed through her movements. Her kicks snapped with precision, her blocks were solid, her strikes cut through the air like blades. When she finished, the entire school had stopped to watch. Master Kim nodded slowly. "Your technique is excellent, but you're holding back." "What do you mean?" "You're afraid of your own power. You've convinced yourself that being strong is dangerous, so you're only using half of what you're capable of." Sophia felt tears threatening to spill over. Being strong is dangerous. It makes you a target. It makes people want to tear you down. Being weak makes you a victim. Being strong gives you choices. That evening, Sophia lay in bed thinking about Master Kim's words. For months, she'd tried to make herself small, invisible, unthreatening. But Marcus and his friends had targeted her anyway. Her attempts at avoidance had only delayed the inevitable confrontation. Maybe it was time to stop hiding from who she used to be. Monday morning brought a new development that would force her hand. Sophia arrived at school to find her locker vandalized. Again, but this time the message was different. Instead of generic insults, someone had written, "We know what you did in California," in red marker across the metal surface. Her blood ran cold. Somehow they'd found out about her father's case. It was only a matter of time before the whole school knew about the scandal, the arrest, the federal charges. Her carefully guarded secret was about to be exposed. But as she stood there staring at the threatening message, Sophia realized something had changed inside her. The fear was still there, but underneath it was something else. Something that had been dormant for almost a year. Anger. Not the helpless rage of a victim, but the cold, focused fury of someone who'd had enough. Marcus Rodriguez wanted to play games? Fine, but he had no idea who he was really dealing with. Sophia cleaned off her locker and went to her first class, but her mind was elsewhere. She was planning, calculating, preparing for war, because the girl who'd won state championships and protected weaker students was still there, buried under months of trauma and fear. And she was ready to come out of hiding. The threat written on Sophia's locker was more than vandalism, it was a declaration of war. Someone had spent considerable time and effort digging into her past, uncovering the carefully buried truth about her father's federal conviction. In a school where reputation was everything, this information was a nuclear weapon waiting to be deployed. Sophia spent Tuesday morning in a state of hypervigilance, watching for signs that the secret was spreading. But the hallways buzzed with their usual mundane gossip. Whatever Marcus and his allies knew, they were saving it for maximum impact. The answer came during lunch period. Sophia was sitting alone in the library, as had become her habit, when her phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. "Meet us in the east parking lot after school. Come alone. Don't make us share your family's dirty laundry with everyone." The message was unsigned, but she knew who'd sent it. Marcus had finally found the leverage he needed to force a confrontation on his terms. The question was whether she'd give him what he wanted. Sophia stared at the phone screen for a long moment, then made a decision that would have shocked the girl she'd been 3 months ago. She typed back a single word: "No." The response came immediately. "Then everyone finds out tomorrow. Your choice." This time, Sophia didn't reply at all. She had bigger concerns than Marcus Rodriguez's threats. That afternoon, she drove straight to Master Kim's dojang. She'd been attending classes for only a week, but already she could feel her body remembering its former strength. More importantly, her mind was clearing. the fog of victimhood lifting to reveal the focused clarity she'd once taken for granted. "You look troubled," Master Kim observed as she changed into her borrowed dobok. "Someone at school is threatening to expose my family's private business unless I submit to their demands." "And what did you tell them?" "I told them no." Master Kim smiled the first time she'd seen him show genuine pleasure. "Good. Now show me that spirit in your training." For the next hour, Sophia pushed herself harder than she had since arriving in Chicago. She ran through advanced forms, practiced complex combinations, and worked the heavy bag until her knuckles bled through the protective tape. Each strike carried months of suppressed anger and frustration. "Better," Master Kim said when she finally stopped, breathing hard. "But you're still holding back." "I don't feel like I'm holding back. Your technique is perfect. Your power is adequate, but you're fighting like someone who's trying to prove something to herself. That's not the same as fighting to win. What's the difference? When you fight to prove something, you're focused on yourself, your pain, your anger, your need for validation. When you fight to win, you focus only on stopping your opponent, by any means necessary." Sophia wiped sweat from her forehead, considering his words. What if I don't want to be that person anymore? What if I don't want to be someone who hurts people? There's a difference between being violent and being dangerous. Violence is chaotic, emotional, destructive. Being dangerous is controlled, purposeful, protective. A surgeon with a scalpel is dangerous, but not violent. That evening, Sophia sat in her room, staring at the Taekwondo uniform hanging in her closet. Tomorrow, Marcus would make good on his threat. By lunch period, everyone at Lincoln High would know about her father's conviction, their financial ruin, the shame that had driven them from California. She could transfer schools again, retreat deeper into hiding. But running hadn't worked before, and it wouldn't work now. There would always be another Marcus Rodriguez, another person who'd see her vulnerability and exploit it, or she could finally stop running. Sophia pulled out her phone and scrolled through her contacts until she found Madison's number. Her best friend from San Francisco answered on the second ring. "Sophia, I was just thinking about you. How's Chicago?" "Complicated," Sophia replied. "Madison, can I ask you something? Do you remember who I was before everything happened with?" "My dad?" "Of course I remember. You were fearless. You stood up to bullies twice your size, won every tournament you entered, never backed down from anything. Do you think that person still exists?" Madison was quiet for a moment. "Soft, that person never went anywhere. She just got buried under a lot of trauma and fear, but she's still you. She's always been you. What if letting her out means people get hurt? What if keeping her buried means you get hurt worse?" After they hung up, Sophia made her final preparations. She laid out her clothes for the next day with military precision. Regular jeans, a simple sweater, and underneath it all, her Taekwondo dobok. The white fabric felt like armor as she held it against her chest. Tomorrow, Marcus Rodriguez would get the confrontation he'd been pushing for. But he'd get far more than he bargained for. Wednesday morning dawned gray and cold, with the promise of snow in the heavy clouds overhead. Sophia dressed carefully, the dobok hidden beneath her street clothes like a secret weapon. She tied her hair back in a simple ponytail, applied no makeup, and looked at herself in the mirror one final time. The girl staring back at her was no longer the broken victim who'd arrived in Chicago 3 months ago. Her posture was straight, her expression calm but alert, her dark eyes holding depths of strength that had been dormant too long. She was ready. The first sign that Marcus had made good on his threat came during the first period. Sophia noticed classmates looking at her with a mixture of curiosity and disgust, whispering behind their hands. Someone had clearly been busy spreading the news about her family's scandal. By second period, the states were more open. Students she'd never spoken to were pointing and laughing. Someone had printed out news articles about her father's arrest and taped them to lockers throughout the hallway. During the third period, her chemistry teacher, Mrs. Henderson, actually asked her to stay after class. "Miss Chun, I've become aware of some circumstances regarding your family situation. I want you to know that if you need to talk to someone, the guidance counselor is available." The false sympathy was almost worse than outright hostility. Sophia simply nodded and left the classroom, ignoring the snickers from her classmates. By lunchtime, the story had taken on a life of its own. Sophia's father wasn't just a convicted felon, he was a mob accountant, a terrorist financier, a drug cartel money launderer. The rumors grew more outlandish with each retelling, but the core message was clear. Sophia Chun came from a family of criminals. She walked through the cafeteria to her usual isolated table, feeling the weight of hundreds of eyes tracking her movement. Conversations stopped as she passed, only to resume in excited whispers once she'd moved on. Marcus and his crew sat at their usual spot, watching her with unconcealed satisfaction. They'd won, or so they thought. The mysterious transfer student had been exposed and humiliated. Her social status was destroyed beyond repair, but Sophia surprised them by eating her lunch calmly, reading her book as if nothing had happened. Her composure in the face of total social annihilation only made Marcus angrier. "She's pretending it doesn't bother her," Diego observed. "It bothers her," Marcus replied. "She's just too proud to show it, but we're not done yet." The final escalation came during the 6th period. Sophia was in English class, trying to focus on a discussion of To Kill a Mockingbird, when Principal Foster's voice crackled over the intercom. "Sophia Chun, please report to the main office immediately." The entire class turned to stare at her. Some students looked sympathetic, others excited by the drama. Sophia gathered her things with deliberate calm and walked out of the classroom, knowing she might not be returning. Principal Foster's office was crowded when she arrived. The principal sat behind her desk, flanked by the school's security officer and guidance counselor. Across from them sat Marcus Rodriguez and his parents, Roberto and Alana Rodriguez. "Miss Chun, please sit down," Principal Foster said, her voice carefully neutral. Sophia took the only empty chair, noting the positioning that put her facing everyone else like a defendant in a trial. "We've received some disturbing information about your family background," Principal Foster continued. "Information that perhaps should have been disclosed when you enrolled here." "My family's private legal matters have nothing to do with my education," Sophia replied calmly. Roberto Rodriguez, a heavy-set man in expensive suit, leaned forward. "They have everything to do with the safety of our children. My son tells me you've been making threats, displaying violent behavior, given your family's criminal connections." "My family has no criminal connections," Sophia interrupted. "My father was convicted of financial crimes. He hurt no one but his own family." "Nevertheless," Principal Foster said, "we have concerns about your continued enrollment here. Some parents have expressed worry about having you in classes with their children." Sophia looked around the room, understanding finally dawning. This wasn't about her behavior or her father's crimes. This was about power, money, and influence. The Rodriguez family wanted her gone, and they had the connections to make it happen. "Are you expelling me?" she asked directly. "We're suggesting that you might be more comfortable at a different school, one better equipped to handle your unique circumstances." "And if I refuse to transfer voluntarily?" Principal Foster exchanged glances with Roberto Rodriguez. "Then we might have to consider more formal disciplinary action based on the complaints we've received about your threatening behavior." Sophia almost laughed. After months of systematic harassment, they were painting her as the aggressor. It was brilliant in its audacity and completely predictable in its injustice. "I see," she said quietly. "And how long do I have to make this decision?" "We'd like an answer by the end of the week." Sophia stood up, shouldering her backpack. "You'll have one by the end of the day." She walked out of the office, leaving behind a room full of people who thought they'd just witnessed her surrender. But Sophia Chun was done surrendering. As she made her way back toward the main hallway, she could feel something fundamental shifting inside her. The careful control she'd maintained for months was slipping away, replaced by the cold clarity of someone who'd been pushed beyond their breaking point. The confrontation she'd been avoiding was no longer avoidable. Marcus Rodriguez had forced her hand, backed her into a corner, and given her no choice but to fight back. He thought he knew what he was dealing with. He thought she was just another victim to be crushed under the weight of his family's influence and social standing. He was about to learn how wrong he was, but first, she had one phone call to make. As she walked toward her locker, Sophia pulled out her phone and dialed Master Kim's number. "Master Kim, it's Sophia. I need to ask you something important." "What is it, child?" "You said being dangerous wasn't the same as being violent. But what if someone forces you into a situation where you have to choose between being dangerous and being destroyed?" Master Kim was quiet for a long moment. "Then you choose to be dangerous, and you accept the consequences. Because destruction is final, but danger can be controlled." "Thank you, Master Kim. I understand now." As she hung up, Sophia felt the last of her hesitation fall away. She'd tried the peaceful route, the official channels, the path of least resistance. All of them had led to the same place, a choice between submission and survival. Marcus Rodriguez wanted a confrontation. He was about to get one. But not on his terms, in his place, with his advantages on hers. The final battle was coming, and Sophia Chun was finally ready to fight. Thursday morning arrived with an electric tension that seemed to crackle through Lincoln High's corridors. Sophia walked through the main entrance wearing her usual jeans and sweater, but underneath, the white fabric of her Taekwondo dobok pressed against her skin like a promise. Marcus had orchestrated the perfect stage for what he believed would be her final humiliation. The main hallway during lunch period, when maximum students would witness his triumph. He'd positioned his allies strategically, Tommy and Diego blocking potential escape routes, Jessica Walsh ready to film everything for social media distribution. "There she is," Marcus announced loudly as Sophia approached her locker. Lincoln High's very own criminal princess. The hallway filled with students drawn by the commotion. Phones emerged from pockets, cameras focusing on the girl who'd become the school's most infamous resident. Sophia calmly opened her locker, ignoring the jeers and taunts. "I heard your daddy's sharing a cell with some real tough guys," Diego called out. "Hope they're treating him real nice." Sophia's hands stilled on her combination lock. Something in her posture shifted, became more predatory. "What's wrong, Sophia?" Marcus stepped closer, emboldened by the crowd. "Cat got your tongue? Or are you finally ready to admit you don't belong here?" She turned slowly, her dark eyes meeting him with an intensity that made several students unconsciously step backward. "You want me gone?" she asked quietly, her voice carrying clearly through the hushed hallway. "I want you to know your place," Marcus replied, moving within arm's reach. "My place," Sophia repeated thoughtfully. Then her hands moved to the hem of her sweater. "Let me show you exactly what my place is." She pulled the sweater over her head in one fluid motion, revealing the pristine white dobok underneath. The crowd gasped as they took in the black belt tied with precision around her waist, the Korean characters embroidered on her chest, the unmistakable bearing of a trained fighter. Marcus's confident smirk faltered. "What the hell?" His words cut off as Sophia's hands moved to her jeans. She stepped out of them with the same fluid grace, standing now in her complete Taekwondo uniform, in the middle of Lincoln High's main corridor. "You wanted to know who I really am?" Sophia said, dropping into a fighting stance that was textbook perfect. "I'm the Illinois state champion. I'm a second-degree black belt. And I'm done hiding." Marcus lunged forward, trying to salvage his Dominance through brute force. It was the last mistake he'd ever make at Lincoln High. Time seemed to slow as Sophia moved. Her body became a weapon guided by years of training and months of suppressed fury. Marcus's wild swing met empty air as she sidestepped with dancer-like grace, her hand chopping down on his extended wrist with surgical precision. His roar of pain echoed off the lockers as he stumbled, clutching his injured arm. But Sophia wasn't finished. Tommy and Diego rushed to help their leader, but they might as well have charged a tornado. Sophia's movements were poetry in motion, each block flowing into a strike, each strike setting up the next defensive position. Tommy's wild haymaker was redirected into Diego's solar plexus, sending both boys crashing into the water fountain. The hallway erupted in chaos. Students screamed, some running for help, others pressing closer to capture every second on their phones. But in the center of the storm, Sophia remained perfectly calm, her breathing controlled, her stance balanced. Marcus struggled to his feet, his face twisted with rage and humiliation. "You crazy bitch, I'll destroy you for this." He charged again, this time more cautiously, but Sophia was ready. She caught his reaching hands, stepped into his guard, and executed a perfect hip throw that sent all 200 pounds of him crashing to the floor. The impact echoed like thunder, standing over her fallen tormentor. Sophia's voice carried across the silent hallway. "The next person who touches me without permission will need medical attention." Principal Foster arrived with security guards, but the fight was already over. Marcus lay groaning on the floor, Tommy clutched his ribs, and Diego gasped for breath. Sophia stood untouched in the center of it all, her dobok pristine, except for a small tear in the sleeve. "Miss Chun, step away from those boys immediately." Principal Foster shouted. Sophia looked at the principal calmly. "They attacked me. I defended myself. Check the cameras if you don't believe me." And that's exactly what happened. The security footage was crystal clear. Marcus initiating contact, his friends joining the assault, Sophia responding with precisely the minimum force necessary to neutralize the threat. Even more damning were the dozens of cell phone videos that captured every angle of the confrontation. By the end of the school day, #Justice for Sophia was trending on social media. The videos showed not a violent delinquent attacking innocent students, but a skilled martial artist defending herself against multiple attackers with remarkable restraint. Local news stations picked up the story by evening. "High school student uses martial arts training to stop bullies," read the headlines. The narrative Marcus had tried to control was completely out of his hands. Roberto Rodriguez arrived at the school within hours, threatening lawsuits and demanding Sophia's expulsion. But Principal Foster, faced with overwhelming video evidence and a rapidly spreading story that painted Lincoln High in a negative light, made a different choice. "Based on our investigation," she announced at an emergency school board meeting that evening, "Miss Chun acted in clear self-defense against multiple attackers. No disciplinary action will be taken against her." The Rodriguez family's threats carried less weight when the entire internet was celebrating Sophia's courage. Their local political connections meant nothing against viral social media support and sympathetic news coverage. Marcus returned to school the following Monday with his wrist in a cast, his reputation in ruins, and his college wrestling prospects seriously damaged. 3 months later, Lincoln High was a different place. The viral video of Sophia's confrontation had sparked conversations about bullying, self-defense, and the importance of standing up for oneself across the entire Chicago school district. Sophia found herself reluctantly famous, fielding interview requests from news outlets and inspirational websites. But more importantly, she'd inspired something at her own school. A group of students approached her 2 weeks after the incident, asking if she'd teach them basic self-defense. "We're tired of being afraid," explained Jennifer Park, a sophomore who'd been Marcus's target the previous year. "Can you show us How to be strong like you. What started as informal after-school sessions in the gymnasium grew into an official club. The Lincoln High Self-Defense Society met twice a week, with Master Kim volunteering his time to help Sophia teach proper techniques. Within a month, they had 40 members. The club attracted not just potential victims, but also students who wanted to learn discipline and confidence. Former bullies joined alongside their previous targets, creating an unexpected community of mutual respect and protection. Marcus Rodriguez transferred schools midway through the spring semester, unable to cope with his diminished status. His departure created a power vacuum that was filled not by another dominant personality, but by a more collaborative social structure. "It's like the whole school exhaled," Rebecca observed one evening as she and Sophia prepared dinner together. "The atmosphere is completely different now." Sophia had changed too, but not in the way she'd expected. The girl who'd arrived in Chicago trying to disappear had become someone who couldn't hide even if she wanted to. But she'd learned to be comfortable with visibility, with leadership, with the responsibility that came with strength. Her grades improved dramatically once she stopped spending energy on surviving each day. She was accepted to Northwestern University with a full academic scholarship, planning to study criminal justice with a focus on victim advocacy. The final surprise came at graduation. Sophia was chosen as the student speaker, standing before the same gymnasium where Marcus had once humiliated her. In the audience sat her mother, who'd flown in from California for the ceremony, her Aunt Rebecca, Master Kim, and dozens of students whose lives she'd touched. 3 months ago, Sophia began, her voice carrying clearly through the packed auditorium. "I believed that the safest way to live was to make myself invisible. I thought that if I was quiet enough, small enough, careful enough, I could avoid conflict and pain." She paused, looking out at the sea of faces that included students she'd taught, teachers who'd doubted her, and parents who'd once wanted her expelled. "I was wrong. Safety doesn't come from hiding who you are. It comes from knowing who you are and being brave enough to defend it. Sometimes the kindest thing you can do is show others that they don't have to accept being treated badly." As applause filled the gymnasium, Sophia touched the black belt she wore under her graduation gown. Thinking of her father and the strength he'd taught her to find within herself, the girl who'd been afraid to fight had become a woman who'd never stop fighting for what was right. Up next, you've got 2 more standout stories right on your screen. If this one hits the mark, you won't want to pass these up. Just click and check them out. And don't forget to subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you don't miss any upload from us.